Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome, Chargers. We're glad to have you back this week for another great guest. I tell you, we try to bring you people in health, wealth, and making you a better person yourself. And today I've got one of those clients that's going to really help us with the wealth side of it, because Brad Connors is president and has been advising individuals and corporations and institutional investors since 1994. Brad has built his practice of iWealth in Waska, Bloomington, Minnesota, and Brad is affiliate with the Investment Centers of America, Inc. in 1998, and was consistently in the top 5% of his peers, including 2010, the ICA Representative of the Year. In 2014, Brad was honored with the Distinguished Community Service Award at the ICA's regional conference. The award was presented to Brad based on his support and commitment to his local community through a variety of initiatives, including charitable giving, youth outreach, community education, and involvement. He has been on the forefront of helping other advisors grow their practice and teaching them what they should be working toward to have a profitable and enjoyable business. Brad authored his first book, Fish Don't Clap, Planning for a Purposeful Retirement, in 2014. His reasoning behind writing the book was to give away the information for everyone to have purpose going into retirement. His book, which has attained many 5-star reviews on Amazon, shines a light on the 20-plus years of experience Brad is working with clients to find what they genuinely want their retirement to look like. For Brad, creating a fulfilling retirement for his clients is about more than figures. It involves taking a family's whole life into account, from values to goals to everything in between. Now you know why I wanted him on the Charge Podcast. Brad Connors, it is great to have you on the Charge Podcast.
It's great to be here, Gary. It's great to catch up with you again. We go back quite some time, as you obviously know, and it's just great to see you and have a conversation with you today. Hopefully I can help.
That's the one thing I would tell my Chargers is, boy, networks, you'll be so amazed. People that you connect with, they will come back to you. I had a gentleman last fall, Brad and I got to know each other through an organization called Strategic Coach. And still, you can call on those people later in life and they're going to make a difference in you. And we haven't seen each other. It's been probably 8 or 10 years as far as, we've talked back and forth several times, but in person, it's been that long. But it shows you that if you have a strong network, it makes a big difference. Brad, I'm kind of really wanted you to start with, we talked about you've been in the retirement and wealth planning and kind of working with organizations there. What allowed you to get into that, and why did you decide that? What's your story of the career path you decided to take?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and one that I've thought through several times, Gary. I grew up in southern Minnesota with a loving mom and dad and one brother that we were just that normal family. My dad had a plumbing business, but at the age of 2, I was in a bad car accident and had a collapsed lung. And as a result of that money got put into bank accounts under interest, and it was in the 80s and 70s, and it grew fine. And throughout my life, I've always had people in my life that have kind of sheltered me and helped me grow and instilled a work ethic with my dad. So at the age of 14, I ran a fish market for an uncle of mine and found out what it was like to work and make $500 a month and 6 days a week, and thought I was rich until I got to the end of the summer and figured out that I probably got taken advantage of with that position. But anyway, I had this loving family, had a grandfather that I looked up to, and he's the type of guy, Gary, that have a baseball hat on and some clothing he bought at a garage sale. He was very humble, and a cup of coffee with his friends was his best day. But he and I would banter back and forth on values and those type of things. So really had that strong family type atmosphere. But at the age of 16, I learned how to borrow against that money that was put in the bank. and I bought a Beretta GT, and I had the nicest car in the lot, let me tell you. But we know how that ends. We know that by, after going to college and at the age of 22, I was broke. It was all gone. And I had been offered to sit down with a financial advisor and wished I would have. If I'd just taken half of that, it'd been, over a couple $100,000 today, if I could have just set it aside and let that grow. And instead I spent it all. And so my real mission is to help people make smart decisions with their money and not make those same mistakes that I did. And I think those family values with my roots, along with my experiences that I've had, that's just where my heart and passion is.
Well, that is a great story, and it shows that it really comes back, and that's what's so interesting to our youth. So many times it shows our career path is really set up, and a foundational component comes that to a lot of different people. I love this topic because it does not matter any of the chargers. That's what I call my listeners that are listening to this. No matter what age they are, this fits them. And this topic is so important with us now being in second quarter of the year, and people have finished up. Most people have, hopefully you finished up your taxes and you've completed them on time, because we're not going to have the extension like we did last year unless you filed for an extension. But the thing is now sometimes they tend to forget about financial side of it. They may have talked about themselves when they were doing, we really ought to sit down with someone. What is one of the things that you really suggest? Because I know your philosophy that you have, Brad, when clients are looking at their picture of what they need to do, and maybe somebody that's never really decided to check out a financial advisor.
Yeah, it's a great question. And it does hit everybody, every facet of life. I mean, I have kids that have Roth IRAs that are in their teens that are putting money in and buying a stock or something and watching it. But I think for, an adult that has a 401k or something like that, I think you get to a point, Gary, where you need to find someone else for the help. The problem comes is you don't know how to find that help, where to seek it. We've got Google and we've got all these companies that are out there online, and there's information overload that's out there. But typically you're going to want to find someone that you can trust and have a conversation with. And that's not so easy. And a lot of times, our clients are coming to us from existing clients. It's the old word of mouth type thing, and treat people how you want to be treated, and if it comes back to you tenfold, that's how it happens. So I would suggest that whoever's listening that might not have a financial advisor first, that they start asking the people they trust and respect on money issues, on who they're seeing and what they're doing, and start to learn. And there's some people some books that they can read and things like that too. But ultimately, it's that conversation one-on-one with somebody that you trust. And it's not for everybody, meaning you might be in your 20s and have a 401k, and you can get enough information online to kind of get you through, but you're going to come to a point in life, from an inheritance or a life event, where you're going to need somebody or need a team of people. And I think finding who needs to be on that bench is really important. Then there's a whole set of other questions you can get into on how you interview that person to know that they're the right fit. But anyway, that'd be my suggestion for somebody that's not there yet.
Well, I love the question you use, because I was thinking about that and that's what you should do, is interview them. You shouldn't just go because you're recommended or referred to them. Interview them. And I would tell you, interview 2 or 3 people, because you need to know who you feel most comfortable with, but also who's really working in your best interest. I've always been a Kiplinger fan, so I read a lot of Kiplinger. It keeps up on the financial side. But even if you don't want to do that, you still want to know yourself. And it's about picking up some opportunities that you have to learn about it, because no one's going to take you to retirement. But the one thing that's going to happen is, we both know, of knowing each other for a long time, it goes by very fast. I don't hide it from people. I'm 53 years old and I have 3 kids in college. I can't believe it yet. I still look back and say, I can't believe it. So people have to realize, one thing about investing that we know is, the sooner you start, the better. But if you don't start at all, there's a problem with that too. So what's your philosophy behind people, no matter what age they are, of getting started?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of not having a lot of debt, Gary. I see too many young people strapped with debt. Let's face it, you're not probably going to save $150,000 or $200,000 to buy a house and then buy the house. So there's good debt and bad debt, and maybe a low interest rate, putting 20% down on your house is good debt. Outside of that, when you look at credit cards and vehicles and stuff like that, the biggest sin I see financially is people not addressing that debt. The whole cliche of keeping up with the Joneses. Dave Ramsey, I'm not connected to him at all. And I don't necessarily agree with his investment philosophy, but I do agree with his envelope theory about how you put money in an envelope to buy that next boat or groceries or whatever. I do agree with his getting out of debt and some of those type of things. So pick up one of his books and take a look at it too. But I would say those people that are just getting started, just be very careful of debt. And I just continue to preach it over and over and over again.
Yeah. And that's where you can pick up philosophies, because I still have your book. I'm showing it to Brad right now. Everyone else is on audio, so you can't see it, but I still have Brad's book because I picked it up. And basically the book is Fish Don't Clap: Planning for a Purposeful Retirement. Share with me first, why did you write the book? And then if I was going to pick it up and read it, which I already have, it's a nice, easy, less than 100-page book to really get information. And I think it was part of the reason that you wrote the book.
Yeah. So what's interesting, Gary, is we've been talking about kind of on the front end. I'm talking about people now in the book that are getting towards the next phase of life. I don't like to call it retirement because that has a stereotype that goes that you just sit on the couch and watch TV and eat popcorn all day long. So the next phase of life, the book I wrote isn't about me and how much I love myself. The book was to give away the information so that somebody can pick it up in Missouri, let's say, and read it and have a different outlook on life based upon what work life looks like to them and how they should be talking to their advisor. See, a lot of my clients early on, when I helped them retire, financially was not a big deal. We got them there. We had the right concepts. We got them. But emotionally, they were a wreck. I've had people cry in my office, couples saying it was the worst year of their marriage the day that they retired, that year that they retired. And in Minnesota, it gets pretty darn cold in the winter times, and it can be pretty miserable. And if you're not feeling good and you're at home and the husband and wife are together all the time and you're on each other's toes, it can be really, really difficult. And so we spend a lot of time in the book and together now with clients trying to get their head around the next phase. If they quit thinking about, I need to get out of here, I need to quit, I need to go, and they start thinking about what's that next phase look like, kids, volunteering, part-time work, whatever that is that makes them feel happy, now that transition is a lot more smooth for them. And I see that people tend to work a little bit longer because now they've taken the onus off, I've got to leave, versus looking forward to what that next phase kind of looks like and then gradually kind of getting in there. So that was the purpose for the book. I think it works. I've had a lot of great feedback from people about it. And then the second concept is from an advisor standpoint. We touched on this earlier, but the number one question I would ask when I sat down and interviewed a financial advisor is, how do you get paid? And it's not as much about the answer, but how they answer it. Look at their facial expressions. Look what's going on in there. Financial advisors should be fiduciaries that are acting in the best interest of their clients. But ask that question, understand how they get paid. We know they need to get paid, understand how it works. And then keep in mind that they've got to have the right value systems. That's why I won't meet with anybody unless it's the entire couple. I'll have guys, the stereotype of guys say, I take care of the finances. I don't care. I want the wife in the room as well, because it's just so important to have those emotional decisions. Some of the best emotional decisions we've made, Trudy, my wife, has made it, not me.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that's the key, is really building that plan together. And I loved how you really framed that up in the book, Brad, because the thing is we have to think, what's our purpose in retirement? And so many people, you and I have both been around Strategic Coach, and we know that Dan Sullivan, one of his philosophies is, it's not about retirement. It's about what you want to do and what becomes, as you say, the purpose that you want to have in that time. Just having, so you don't have to show up or get up to go to work, that's going to bore you out really quick, especially the winter we had. At least here in Missouri, we've had a pretty rough winter compared to before. And that's going to wear you out, because then there's no purpose. And when there's no purpose, of course, that creates other challenges that people go through. So as really looking at the big picture, and it really doesn't matter if you're 20 or 30 or 40 at this time. You may think that's a long ways off, but the thing is, you can start building what that picture is. I want to be able to travel. We're now in the mid 50s, and we're not far away from where we're in the process of putting where quarterly we're going on a trip. And right now we still have the children, but they're in college. So we have a little more freedom. Like last fall, we decided to, on a whim, to kind of go to Colorado for a week and get out and do some hiking. Well, we have that flexibility now that's available to us, so you can do different things with it. It's not about getting to a date and you circle on the calendar on this year, 12/31, I'm going to retire. Really, it's let's get to that date. And then that's when you enact your next plan to move forward. And I love your concept with that.
Yeah, and what's really interesting, we write about these eye buckets in the book as well in one of the chapters, but here's the concept there, Gary, and this can be for somebody 20, 40, or 70. What happened is there was an autonomy of funds. We went through this in strategic coaching, did this, and I came back and sat down with Trudy, my wife, and I said, listen, we've got retirement accounts, we have a college account, but then we've got this bucket that just we're accumulating money in for retirement or whatever down the road. And we broke out a lot of different buckets, from having a second home fund to an opportunity fund to a vacation fund. So you take somebody in their 40s or someone in the middle 50s like yourself, yes, you need your retirement accounts. But if you know that you're on track for that retirement, let's start putting purpose behind those things that you just want to do. If it's a vacation every year, that money shouldn't be in the market. That money should be in a bank account earning nothing, but at least it's there so that you can use it for the next trip. If it's to go to Alaska for your 50th wedding anniversary, and that's 15 years down the road, invest that money and put a goal out there how much you want to have. If it's a wedding 10 years from now, put the goal out there and start saving towards that goal. So I just encourage people to think of, I use buckets, maybe it's too simple, but I encourage people to think about where they want that money. Be intent with your money, be purposeful with that money, and start filling those different buckets up to use on those milestones that you're talking about.
Yeah, so important, because otherwise, if you never get started, you're not going to do that. Brad, I guess one of the questions I have, because somebody's thinking that in the that's listening to us now, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't make the most money. Between my wife and I, we are challenged or struggled a little bit in that. We put in our 401k, but maybe they're even pulling back from that part of it. What would you tell someone? Because, it doesn't matter what amount of money you have. Of course, we tend to have a cycle. Of course, what the cycle of life wants to tell us, spend it all, and then even spend more, because put it on your credit card when you don't have the money for it. What would you tell that type of individual says we're challenged in being able to save?
Yeah, I think they need to sit down and get a second opinion. They have to go to a trusted friend or an advisor or somebody to sit down and just run through their budget. The biggest thing I see, Gary, is when people retire, they'll still retire and sit down and slide their $900,000 401k statement across the table and say, can I retire? And I slide it aside saying, I don't know, how much do you need? I have people living on $3,000 a month and people that can't live on $10,000 a month. So a budget it sounds painful, and it is, and there's tools out there, but it's so important. And so I would encourage that couple to find out what that budget is and take a look at where they think they can pay extra on that debt. Also, back to their 401k, they should be doing up to the match. It's free money. If it's a 3% match, they should be taking that. But what I encourage people to do is they really want to get to 10 to 12% in savings. So if the match today is 3%, just get it started and then whittle down your debt as much as you can. But on your birthday or on your, when we click into January, go 1%, go from 3% to 4%. You won't miss it. Then next year, go to 5, and next year, go to 6, and eventually get up to that 10 to 12, depending on where you're at from an age standpoint, because you need to have money set aside too. If you're constantly servicing debt and you constantly are buying more stuff, you're never going to get out of debt. And so you've got to have a second opinion and accountability partner, so to speak, Gary, to hold your feet to the fire.
Yeah. And create that budget, because if you don't create a budget, money comes in, it goes out. I'll be honest, my wife and I got out of that mode. And this January, we sat back down and we kind of put a budget back together and said, we're going to follow a budget each month. We did really well before. And of course you fall off of things and thought, oh, you're doing okay. And I didn't like the spending that we did last year and said, it's time to kind of refocus and replan. So January 1 was that time for us. That week, we decided to sit down and put the budget together. Brad, the other side that I'd really ask you about is, last year we had the pandemic, and in March we saw the markets just totally tank. And then sometime in April and May, they started rising and coming back up. Well, the one mistake we know people make is when there is a challenge in our economy and things start to tank, people start to get worried. And they start to create a challenge where then should I get out of the market completely? Well, anyone that got out of the market in that March, early April timeframe made a big mistake, because we know by the end of the year that it kept moving up, and we were higher numbers than we were back in March before it started going down. What would you tell people? Because there are going to be these cycles all the time. We all know that. But the thing is, some people get really paranoid and really worried on the mistakes that they make. And in financial planning, what's the real key for them to really continue to create that wealth they want to create, even in hard times?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Gary. And I'll give you a couple of examples, but people get hung up with making a decision to get out of the market. It's so easy to get out of the market. It's very difficult to get back in the market. So timing does not work. Gary, you can go back to the 1920s, and I can prove 100% of the time that we're going to have a higher market someday. Remember when the Dow got to 10,000, like, holy moly, it's at 10, 20,000. Now we're at 31,000. Someday it'll be at 40,000. So you just can't time this market. What you can do is buy on dips. You can keep extra cash in accounts, and when the market pulls back 10%, buy more. What you can't do is sell the whole thing and try to get back in. Couple examples. I had 2 clients in March that got out. Neither one of them should have. Both I asked them not to get out, but we have to honor their requests. And they were scared. They said the market's going to continue to drop. One got out at 18.5 on the Dow. When are you going to buy back in is always my question. We're going to buy back in at 12,000. Never got there. They're still out today and it's 31,000. So it's not their fault. I tried to hold their hand. It's just that fear that gets into people. And they just need to understand that this market is resilient. It always come back. It's not different. The 4 most dangerous words, I think it was Sir John Templeton said, it's different this time. It's not. We've been through wars. We've been through 9/11. We've been through pandemics before. Things come and go, and you just need to be able to hold on, close your eyes, talk to somebody that you trust, and it'll be fine.
That's right. And if you have a plan, then that plan is going to carry you through, because if you are retired, you're in a position that you know that you have things set up for more than short term, so that you're not pulling out. So it's creating that plan and having that advisor that helps you through that. Brad,
one second, Gary, I was just going to throw this in. The other thing that I'm hearing today is now we're at 31.5. Like, should I even get in? It's too high. I can't buy. And my answer to that is, when do you need the money? See, back to this bucket idea, I had a client that was going to go on a 50th wedding anniversary to Alaska. And we had money, plenty of money to do it. And it was in 2009 and the market went down. And I could not get the husband off of Go to sell it to go on their trip. He wouldn't sell it on sale. And it was my fault as the advisor that I didn't have that 10 grand put in an account with very little risk. So I could look at his wife and say, take that money and go on your trip. So back to, should we buy today? If it's money that you're going to need a year from now, probably not. If it's money 3, 5, 10 years from now, buy the market and let it work its way out and move on.
Yep. Love that advice. Share with me, Brad. I think before we wrap up and have to go to the recharge round, I could talk to you all day, because I love this side of things. And I do a lot of research and quite a bit of reading on financial side, because the one thing is, is you have to decide if that's important to you, then spend the time in it. Get things like Brad's book, Fish Don't Clap. That's an easy read, and just start. And you'll see that you'll really enjoy it as time goes on. But I think I'm going to end with the question of some things that I think we've already discussed. But if you were advising someone and I came to you and I'm getting started, what would be the 1, 2, or 3 things that you would tell me, this is what I would do to get started, Gary?
Yeah. So just on the front end, if you didn't have anything going at this point, what would I suggest that you do?
Yes.
Number one thing would get a budget. Let's see what your intake is every month, and let's see what you're paying out every month, and let's see where there's some gaps. There was a book written years ago called The Latte Factor. And if you just, the concept was if you just would quit buying a latte twice a week and put that money in the account, let it grow, right? There's always room in every budget I've looked at, there's always room. There's some room there, either to pay down some expensive debt like high interest credit cards or to invest in money. So number one thing you have to organize and get your head around that. The second thing would be, let's take a look at what your goals are. Is your goal to pay off the vehicle 3 years from now, your house? Is your goal to retire early? Is your goal to put your kids through college? Those are all different buckets back to that concept. And let's start to see what those goals are and then fund them. Where do we have room in the budget, and what's the number one priority that we got to knock out? And then lastly, you always have to take a look at your insurance. So whether it's your home insurance or your life insurance or long-term care, but you have to insure the things you can't afford to replace. So my wife, or my house burning down, or a big lawsuit, personal liability type thing. So that's the other side of the equation. You got to make sure that you're protected.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think it's great information. Share with them now, if you would, Brad, if they want to reach out to you and connect with you, how they can do that. And also, how could they get a copy of the book?
Yeah. So on YouTube, we have a YouTube channel with over 100 short videos on there just to educate people. It's iWealth TV that they can find. So IWEALTH TV. On Facebook, they can find us on iWealth, and then Fish Don't Clap. That can be bought on Amazon, and we have our own website and things for that too. So just look up Brad Connors or look up iWealth or Fish Don't Clap, and they'll find it.
And if you're running or driving right now, we'll have it all in show notes for you to make it easy. Just go to chargepodcast.com and you click on the link, and it'll take you right to where you want to go. Brad, I truly appreciate the time, but we've got 3 what I call recharge questions that I ask every guest that I'd love to get your feedback. Of course, the podcast is named Charge. That's after my mantra: create habits around real goals every day. What habit do you think has led to success in your life?
For me, it's routine, Gary, and this could be a 10-minute answer because we know we've talked about this, but over an 8-year period, I lost 100 pounds, and there was a speech that I heard that kind of changed my life. But for me, it's routine. This morning, every Monday through Friday, it's up at 5 a.m. I have my coffee, I have my daily devotion, I'm exercising at 6:30 in the shower. It's just a routine for me. It's back to my Colby. I just have to have that in place. So I have to have a routine. And exercise is probably the number one. That and daily devotion is my number 1 and 2 things that have to happen daily.
Excellent. Appreciate you sharing that. How about what I call one simple positive action you take each day to help you move forward to achieve your goals?
So I'll say 2. One is this app called Gratitude. It's old, but I type in there every single morning the top 3 to 5 things that I'm grateful for today. And you were one of them today, Gary.
Oh, wow.
The other thing is I have a planner, and I do a planner every night. And then there's a series of questions inside of there, and I do that every day too.
Okay, excellent. How about the biggest life lesson, and what did you learn from it?
That's it. Yeah. So I haven't prepared for this one, Gary. Biggest life lesson. I would say the truth will set you free. John 8:32 is a mantra my kids and my team at iWealth hear daily from me. The truth will set you free. I just think no matter what comes up in your life, you have to be truthful with yourself, and you have to be truthful with the people that you're dealing with. And that way you can sleep at night.
That is an excellent one. Truth will set you free. Think about that, Chargers. How do you put that in your life each day? Brad Connors, I can't thank you enough for being on the Charge podcast, and it's great to see you, my friend. And that shows you how relationships are so important. 10, 12 years ago, Brad and I were in a group together, but now we're still connected because we reach out to each other and be able to connect with each other. So keep that in mind as you're making your relationships. Brad, great to have you here.
Thanks so much. It was great to see you, Gary.
Chargers, remember, his book is Fish Don't Clap. You can get there by fishdon'tclap.com if you want. Just go to the podcast notes. He has a wealth of videos, and they're short videos. So if you want to start learning, we talked about that in the podcast, go to his videos and check them out on YouTube. We're going to have all those links in chargepodcast.com for you. So it makes it easy for you to be able to get to them. So if you're not planning for your retirement or where you want to be, setting those goals, this would be a good opportunity for you. That's why I wanted Brad to come on, is because wealth is one of those things we have to decide to take action on. And all Chargers want to have wealth when they get to that point. But if you don't start wherever you're at right now, you're never going to get started. So my challenge to you today is take the action to make a budget and really start moving forward to find the places that you can save to be able to start creating your wealth that you want in your life. Chargers, it's great to have you back again today. Remember, like and share this. This may be a podcast you want to send to someone else. So go ahead and share it with your buddy or a friend, or maybe your significant other, and say, hey, maybe we ought to go sit down with an advisor and see what would work best for us. Make it a great day, and we'll see you back here next week. Thanks, Chargers.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.